going to go and frolic around in the field. Hi, welcome back to my channel La Fraise. This week I wanted to present to you the Springe dress which I'm wearing right now. I have already done quite a few of those pattern reviews. This time I don't have a vlog going with it, it's really just a review, so I'll go straight into it. I made this dress for a wedding I had in Germany this year. I had to make bows for, well, you saw because it was last week's video, I had to make bows for my cousin's wedding, so this was the test bow I did for that. And I don't know, I feel like because the dress is a little bit cottagecore already, the bow kind of like ties it nicely together, and I felt like it gave a little bit of something extra. And I don't have so many notes. I'm really happy with how the dress looks. I have decided to make, I'll step here so that you can see the finished look. I have decided to make the version of the skirt that is not gathered. I think that if you make this skirt in the gathered version, it would then look a lot more, even more cottagecore, and I still wanted to wear this for a wedding, so I wanted it to be a bit dressed up, so that's why I decided on this dress with the slit, and I really enjoy how it ended up looking. I think if you made this for a little bit more of a relaxed look, the gathered skirt would also be a really nice option. I have made the short sleeves, but because I don't have really long arms, I think they're already quite long on me, those short sleeves. I made the size D for the top and I graded to an F for the bottom. If you remember, in the Lockhart dress I was also 2 sizes bigger on the bottom than the top, but because of the ease that there was in the skirt, I managed to grade only 1 size down for the bottom. Here I could tell from the finished garment measurements that there wasn't much ease left in the bottom, and that I really needed to grade 2 sizes, so I graded quite aggressively to make those 2 sizes happen, but I think it doesn't create any bump or anything. I graded from my waist to my hips 2 sizes and it went really fine, and because there's my body shape underneath and that's my size, it really fitted perfectly. I quite like that the sizing are A, B, C, D, because I find this a lot less triggering than when it's numbers and stuff that you can compare with your ready to wear, and maybe the random hang-ups you have on some numbers in your head. The fact that it's just letters, you can't compare, and it's just easier and nicer, so that's something, a really great thing in my book. The fabric cost me €37.25, €1 for the zip and €4 for the thread, so we had a total of about €42 for this dress, which I think for a wedding outfit is still a bargain, but obviously it's a cotton, it's not a fancy fabric, but it's a very comfortable fabric to wear, and also not too warm. It was quite warm on the wedding day when I wore this, and I didn't feel like I was overheating. I also didn't feel like I was showing sweat or anything. I have to say those very patterned fabric are really good for that. They hide maybe sweat marks a little bit better than on a plain fabric where you might see sweat patches very easily, but here, because it's so busy, it camouflages everything perfectly. If you often watch my videos, you know that I love to do a great Tetris when I actually cut my pattern pieces, and I always pride myself to end up with a lot of fabric leftovers, and in this case I ended up with barely anything left after I cut the dress. This print is directional, so I actually had to be careful with that, and obviously if your print is not directional, you can play around a lot more and make sure that your Tetris is even more efficient. But still a note, if you tend to use most of the fabric when you cut your patterns, be careful, because I always end up with a lot of fabric, had barely anything left by the end. So if you normally don't use your fabric sparingly, maybe here is the time to actually lay it all out and check that you have enough before you cut. So the main point I have to make about the construction of this dress, 2 things. First, this bit here, I decided to do the lined version, so they offer 2 ways to construct this, either just sewing this up to the bust area and that's basically it, or they suggest that you can also use a lining inside, so this piece is doubled and then you sandwich those pieces into the 2 pieces here, which is what I done because I thought it would end up a lot neater inside. But I have to say this was quite a job. It took me so many pins, and then I think I ended up unpicking it 4 times. The first time it was because the gathers weren't quite right, and that's going to be my next point, but then the next time it's quite tough. I'll come closer to, I'll show a close up, it's never going to work otherwise, to have that bit actually symmetrical and falling really neatly. It was a bit tricky, not impossible, you can definitely do it, but this was something that you definitely needed to go slow, need to make sure you didn't catch anything. It was a bit fiddly, but we managed, and I was so happy when I arrived at the end. Which leads me to the gathers. So there are 2 gathered areas in this dress, under the breast here and on the shoulders, and in both cases for me the gathered area was way too small for the look I wanted. So I have filmed just after I did the first gathered, and basically I found that the gathered area here was way too narrow and created a real pointy feel on the breast, which wasn't very nice. So I totally removed that, I unpicked it all, and I create a gathered line that goes basically, that hugs the whole breast. I thought that looked a lot better than having flat seams here and a very short and intense gather here in the middle. I don't really understand why they made it like that. Maybe with some fabrics different than mine it would look fine, but with the stiffer cotton it just wasn't a good look at all. So I made those gathered a lot more spread out here so that they're less scrunched up in a tiny corner and also less of 2 points here. It was not a good look. And when I saw the gathered line that they had planned for the sleeve caps, I thought that is exactly the same problem about to repeat itself. So I didn't even try to follow the instructions. I went straight to making much wider gathered lines and spread the gathered more evenly across the sleeve caps, because again, I didn't want 2 very intense crunched up bits here and then the rest being flat. I just didn't quite get this. This is my one point about the drafting of this dress, and that's the gathered in both places. I didn't agree. So if you followed my sewing plans, you knew that I bought the whole collection for this pattern, so the Springer dress and jumpsuit, and that I already had the fabric to make the jumpsuit out of. Now I have to say, now that I have made this, and if you know my preference, you might know that I find this quite intense on the décolletage, and that is not something I feel extremely comfortable in. I think that this is fine because this is for weddings and maybe weekends and feeling fancy, but I was thinking in the end I'm not making the jumpsuit for the wedding I had for you guys. It's now a whole week ago. I decided to rewear my lockout dress. I didn't really get a chance to show it off the first wedding I went to wearing it because the weather was so bad. I was wearing a cardigan and a coat, so I wanted to wear my lockout once more. I also basically didn't have time to make this jumpsuit. I had to be a bit realistic and cut down on my project list. But so the thing is, I wanted to make this jumpsuit, so the jumpsuit that is the same top as this without the puffy sleeves and a jumpsuit bottom instead of a dress, and I was going to make it in that blue flowery fabric. I'll put it here. It's a fabric I'm absolutely in love with, and it's a fabric I really like, and that's why I'm kind of questioning, because it's a fabric I really love. I can't stress enough how excited I am about this fabric, and if I make a jumpsuit that is a little bit too intense here for me, I know I'm not going to wear it, and I'm also like, is a jumpsuit the most wearable option? So as I'm not planning to wear it for a wedding anymore, I'm like, maybe it's really my chance to make something super wearable, that I'm going to make the most of this fabric and get to wear it a lot instead of making something that's going to gather dust in my wardrobe. So 2 points. One, like, what do you think I do with this jumpsuit? Do I still try to make it in another fabric? I'm thinking it could be quite classy in a plain fabric, maybe something a bit velvety or something textured for Christmas. I don't know, but at the same time there's always this issue, so maybe I give this one a rest. But what do I do with that beautiful blue fabric? I really don't know what to do with it. I think I'm going to not rush into making a decision, but if you have patterns when you're like, this is going to be your perfect wear everyday dress or jumpsuit option, make it in this fabric, please let me know in the comments, because I am truly interested. And yeah, I just have 3 quick things I wanted to talk about, which is 1, we went on a bike trip, my wife and I posted a short here about the me mates I wore on that trip. But if you are generally interested in bike road trips, then go on my Instagram in the reels section, and I have quite a few reels about that bike trip in general, so don't hesitate to go and check that out. In general, I'm not going to go over the whole thing because this is not the place, but it was just really interesting. We stopped in Monschau, and it's a city that got rich from the cloth making industry. So in one of the old houses that you can visit and that has been turned into a museum, you could see a lot about the cloth making industry and how they turned wool into cloth, and it was just a really nice experience. So just a little heads up, if you are one day near Monschau and you are interested in textile, this might be one for you. And finally, if you're still here, maybe you don't mind hearing me ramble a little bit. And I know that there's a lot of you that are new here and that weren't here a few months ago when I started my channel, and someone commented on one of my very first video, which is the this or that tag video. And I actually wanted to give this video a little shout out. It has about 150 views, so it's very, very low. And I think if you want to get to know me a little bit, that's a great one to go to. And I'm really curious to see if you have different opinions, and go and fight me in the comments if you are rotary cutter instead of scissors team. But so it's all points like, are you rotary cutter or scissors, tracing or cutting, etc, and etc, all of those this or that questions sewing edition. So that's one of my old videos that I wanted to kind of like push out to you if you want to get to know me a little bit better, and I really want to know you a little bit better. So if you want to go to that video and let me know what are your this or that, I'll be really interested to read what you have to tell me. So that's it, my Springer dress and I, we're going to go and frolic around in the field. No, I'm actually going to change it and go back into my real life clothes. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope it was interesting. Give this video a like if you liked it, subscribe if you want to come back to my channel in the future, and don't forget that you can make anything. Bye! My lord, for once that he's not lying on the foot of my machine, he's now lying on my foot.